It's President's Day, and the President of the United States is covering up a child sex trafficking ring, disgracing the country, ripping away people's health care. Let's just get right into it. We have now learned that Donald Trump may still be concealing an additional 50 terabytes that constitutes the Epstein Files. That could literally mean hundreds of millions of documents are still being concealed, not just like an extra 3 million documents, which is what Todd Blanche and Bondi said they were withholding based on their own adjudication of privilege claims that are not valid privilege claims, to withhold what are likely the most devastating documents, far more devastating than what's even been produced. But in addition to those 3 million documents, there's probably somewhere in the range of 50 to 100 million documents. We'll break that down. Also, over the weekend, Donald Trump's Department of Justice also published their own Epstein list. They basically published a fake list to try to muddy the waters. So they have like Donald Trump's name and other people from the Trump regime who were actually close with Epstein. Then they put people on the list like Janis Joplin and Marilyn Monroe and Elvis and Dan Quayle and people like that. And also, like, if you were investigating Epstein, they put you on the list as well. So like Massey's name is on it and Marjorie Taylor Greene's name is on it. And the idea is just to put everybody on it in order to just like cast doubt on the list in general. That's just how despicable this regime is. We'll break it down. This past weekend, Donald Trump was haunted by former President Obama, former President Clinton, and potentially future President Gavin Newsom. All three were going on the offense. Obama here in the United States, attending the All-Star game and doing interviews where he called out Donald Trump's clownish behavior. And then in Munich, you had former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and Governor of California Gavin Newsom going on the offense against Donald Trump on the world stage. We'll cover that. And meanwhile, you had Marco Rubio giving speeches at Munich declaring that the world order is officially destroyed, like bragging that the United States destroyed the global world order. Rubio then went to Hungary, where he's been in the past 24 hours, standing shoulder to shoulder with Viktor Orban, trying to hoist up that regime, interfere with the elections in Hungary to keep a Putin bootlicker in power in Hungary as Orban is trailing. We also saw world leaders throughout the Munich conference speaking out against the Trump regime, acknowledging the world order is effectively destroyed by the United States, but being rebuilt by Europe, Canada, Australia, Asia, and as the United States is isolating itself, apparently U.S., Orban, Russia, that's the U.S. crew right now, and it's so utterly freaking embarrassing. And then you have Donald Trump posting, as usual, his, embarrassing President's Day messages saying, everything's great. Everybody's rich. We're the richest. Everyone's doing amazing. Golden age. I'm the greatest. Yay. As people are suffering here. Let's bring in Brett and Jordy. Good to see you, brothers. In other words, we've got a lot to discuss on this show.
Yeah, if you thought the holiday would be a slow news day, think again. I'm hearing a lot of people call this President's Day Obama Day. I've noticed that going around on the internet. I think because people know that pisses off Trump so much. But it's you got to know that seeing Obama out there at the NBA All-Star Game, getting a standing ovation from the crowd, having all the players go up there and give him high fives, all the photos, all the kind of posts by the various NBA teams with him. That's got to kill Donald Trump. That's got to just absolutely torture the guy, and good, because he is torturing us every single day, and he is covering up for this horrific child sex trafficking ring. What the DOJ did over the weekend, like I should never say that they hit rock bottom, because there's always a basement to rock bottom with this regime. Such an absolute disgrace with this sort of fake list that they released to muddy the waters, and everything else that they have done has just been such a slap in the face to the survivors, has just been a slap in the face also to just all the American people who are demanding justice and are demanding the truth. And one of the interesting things is seeing that even many of the diehard MAGA people now are finally starting to wake up as we see the floor fall out from Donald Trump's approval rating. You thought there might have been a floor there. Well, it seems like Donald Trump keeps sinking lower and lower and lower. We're going to get into all of that. But, first, we got to toss it over to Jordy and see how Jordy's doing. Jordy, what's the latest?
What's up, brothers? What's up, Midas Mighty? I'm excited to get into today's show. One quick housekeeping note. 40,000 away from hitting 6 million subscribers on the YouTube. So if you can, please check to see if you're subscribed. Hit that subscribe button. It's totally free. Some people think you're subscribed, but you're actually not. So just do a quick double check. And if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Again, totally free. 40,000 away. I think we might hit it this week. We'll see. Benji, where are we starting off today, big bro?
You know, I probably have now reviewed the millions of records in the redacted Epstein files that have been produced. How many times do you think I've read through them? Like 20 times. And I think I've covered them from every angle. Go back and watch the long form videos I've done, everything where I speak about the Putin connections within the Epstein files, the New Mexico ranch, the Zorro Ranch, which there was never any subpoenas or FBI searches. And the ranch is one of the areas where most of the crimes were taking place. We talk a lot about the island. We talk a lot about the townhouse in New York and what was going on in West Palm Beach. But a lot of the crimes were happening at this Zorro Ranch in New Mexico, where Epstein was able to avoid registering as a sex offender, taking advantage of loopholes under New Mexico law. And we covered, what goes down there. We talked about, of course, the Trump connections over and over again. And it just bears, right? Like, I can go through any stack and I find documents. Like before the show, I was just looking through the documents that I've been going through. And I mean, just think about an email like this. This is April 18th, 2011. And it's from Epstein's private investigator to Epstein saying, before I call Trump with regard, Virginia, are there any other alternatives? Or an email from June 8th of 2018 between Epstein and an artist named Andre Serrano. And you have Epstein saying, one Madonna on the way instead of torture photo, maybe portrait of me instead, presentation of Trumpville. Here it is. Room should be 75 by 75. And then, over the weekend, there was lots of reporting too about the text messages between Epstein and Bannon. I know we've covered that a lot. So, I mean, you're like, oh yeah, tell me something new. More of a focus on trying to overthrow Pope Francis, and that there was this massive effort as Epstein and Bannon were working with these MAGA files. I guess we should probably call them now MAGA files, these Epstein class people during the first Trump administration to overthrow liberal democracies across the world and hoist up MAGA leaders like Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil and keep in power people like Orban in Hungary. And by the way, in Hungary, someone like a Viktor Orban used allegations of pedophilia against his political enemies, saying that Orban would be the one to hunt down the pedos. Exact same playbook. I've covered this before on the network. And then ultimately the juvenile prison system in Budapest was being used by Orban's regime to sex traffic underage boys and girls, and they themselves were the pedos. Like, that's a kind of common theme we're seeing here amongst these kind of right-wing authoritarian regimes. They use the same playbook. They were trying to overthrow Pope Francis. And so they talk about like planting porn on Pope Francis, or like, porn, let's take him down. We're going to take down the Clintons, Francis, the EU. Gee, come on, brother. I mean, this is Bannon and Epstein. And look, it's like Epstein was like running the Trump administration. He was like talking about holding cabinet meetings on the island after Trump was elected. You've got messages between Epstein to multiple people looking for who is going to be the Treasury Secretary. Epstein looked like he was in charge of identifying who the Treasury Secretary was going to be in the first Trump administration. So I think back, when I think about the tools of the authoritarian playbook, I think to how the projection of the Trumps and the MAGA and their conferences and how they weaponize this against their political opponents. I mean, yeah, by the way, Tom Barrack right now, one of Trump's top diplomats. I mean, in August 2011, you have Barrack emailing Epstein and saying, just saw the Sultan who likes you a lot, right? This is the Sultan who sent him the torture photos. I told him you are the best, that you are first class, Jeffrey. You're a first class brain inside a first class human being. Miss you. And then the guy right now who's the CBS host, Atia, because CBS is regime media. You have Barry Weiss and CBS refusing to get rid of Atia. Atia is like talking about I didn't want to say the words. I didn't want to just say the words. They're so grotesque. Talking about female genitalia being low carbs. I'll just say that is what this guy Atia was saying to Epstein. And the hardest part about being your best friend is knowing that most people don't even know the things that we do, or I can't even share what we all do together. And then you
it's for a quote. Ready? 2016. I go into JE withdrawal. I go into Jeffrey Epstein withdrawal when I don't see him. This is the guy they're keeping around at CBS.
There's other ones that are just like what I'm saying, like where he's like, the hardest part is about being your best friend is most people don't know about all the secrets or something. Like it's like our secret code, and then he says that, women's genitalia is low carb, and you just disgusting stuff. But like
Atia wrote that the worst part about being Epstein's friend was that, quote, the life you lead is so outrageous, and yet I can't tell a soul.
You see, I mean, look, I don't even have the files in front of me. I can pretty much give you an encyclopedic recount of all of the things that are said. But CBS is like, yeah, we can't give in to the woke mob. We have to keep that guy. Why do you have to keep that guy? What are you talking about? So you have all that. But I'm just thinking about at these MAGA conferences, like remember the line that they would also, I could show you this for hours, but do we have that clip, Brett and Jordy, of Don Jr. at the MAGA conferences when Biden was in office, and like what they would say about like, this was all the left and this is what Biden's cover up? Here, play this clip of Don Jr.
I am on every list except the Epstein list. We haven't heard anything about that one in a while. I'm fine with all the other lists. As long as I'm not on the Epstein list, we're good, right? Speaking of which, how is it that my father could be convicted of 34 crimes, but no one on Epstein's list has even been brought to light? I'm trying to figure out how that's possible, right, folks? It's almost like they're trying to protect those pedophiles for some reason. I can't imagine why, right? We're not allowed to say they're groomers, but when they act a lot like groomers, sort of tells you everything you need to know, right?
Now what they're doing too is, did you see these graphics that the MAGA influencers are making, like the track Epstein graphics, and they'll have like Thomas Massey's face on it and say on the Epstein list, when he was the person who unmasked the Epstein files with Ro Khanna. This is the playbook right out of authoritarianism, right? It is to say all these other people all these other people are pedos, and cover up the actual pedo ring that's taking place. I mean, the cabal, the sex trafficking cover up that exists is taking place in the White House. And the good news is though, Brett, when they tried to publish that fake list over the weekend, right away, MeidasTouch was out there. We were there right away. Fake list, bullshit, call it out, say what it is. And it was interesting, though, because while you do see these MAGA influencers like Cat Turd and that group is getting smaller and smaller. And it's just interesting to see that people who would never agree with us before are favorably saying they're right. MeidasTouch has been right. Like what you guys have been saying all along, we've been lied to.
Yeah, and they, I think Don Jr. and a lot of these MAGA influencers, when Biden was president, really took advantage of the fact that Biden was somebody who actually abided by norms and traditions of the United States and actually believed in a separation between the Department of Justice and the executive branch. So Biden, maybe he should have released the files and tried to smear Donald Trump by getting all this information about Trump out there. But that wasn't Biden's MO, and there was active cases and appeals from Ghislaine Maxwell. And so they said all of those things knowing that they were in the files, knowing that Trump was like the main character of the Epstein files. They should just be called the Trump Epstein files. And even Don Jr. is mentioned many times in the Epstein files. I was able to find 3 quick examples right here where Jeffrey Epstein asks somebody, can we do a coffee with Don Jr. Thursday, Friday, only if easy? And this is January 2019. And then they send some dates for the coffee. I don't know if the coffee ended up happening, but They were scheduling a coffee with Don Jr. Epstein was in 2019. There's another thing where Epstein's speaking with Steve Bannon here. This is in 2018, where Epstein suggests sending a clip to Don Jr. There's another moment where Jeffrey Epstein references that I'm out in Palm Beach. I'm with the Trump boys right now. I don't know who the Trump boys might be, but Epstein said in an email that he was with the Trump boys. So just the gall of somebody to get up there on stage and say those things when you know that you and your family are like the most implicated out of anybody. But to Ben's point, that's part of the strategy. As we've seen with Trump from the very beginning, everything he says is projection. Everything he says is a confession of something that he himself has done. Whenever he calls somebody else a name, whenever he comes up with a conspiracy theory about somebody, it's usually to mask something that he himself is trying to hide from the public. And you're really now seeing this sort of delineation, I think, in the MAGA world between the people who you know are just the paid shills. Like, I've seen a lot of MAGA people even what was that?
The white binder crew.
Yeah, the white binder crew. And then you see the folks who have at least a little bit of independence, right? Maybe they're not, maybe the checks stopped cashing. You know, I don't know what the situation is. But even like when this fake list dropped from the DOJ, I think MeidasTouch was the first, I think we were the first organization to get our hands on this list and posted. Aaron Parnas, got a great scoop here. And we immediately saw the list for what it was, because they put people like Elvis Presley on it. They put people like Marilyn Monroe on it, Janis Joplin, and in a mix with names of other people who were actually involved with Epstein, in a mix with, and also not getting a lot of the people on this list who we knew were actually involved with Epstein from reading the files ourselves. And the survivors told us that many of the biggest perpetrators of these crimes, of Epstein's associates, were not even on this list. So what they did was they just assembled, if somebody, there was a news article that somebody shared about somebody, maybe it said, to this day in 1968, Janis Joplin released her hit single, whatever. That means that Janis Joplin would be on this list. If they said, I love Elvis. Elvis is one of my favorite artists of all time. That means Elvis now gets on this list. And he is viewed the same by the Department of Justice as somebody like a Donald Trump, as somebody like a former Prince Andrew, as a Ghislaine Maxwell. And so there was a lot of uproar about this. And you actually saw these MAGA influencers online copying and pasting the same tweets to each other, including people like Alex Jones. Like, dude, this was your big issue. And now you got all the information, not all the information, but you got a lot of information. And now you're going to try to spin it to protect Donald Trump? Really? What a freaking fraud. But all these people posting things like, this vindicates Trump. Oh, Thomas Massey's on the list. Oh, shut up. Stop with the theatrics. All you're doing is making yourself seem that much guiltier every time you cover it up. And as one of these influencers, these MAGA propagandists who are online, all you are showing everybody is how big of frauds you truly are. Copying and pasting tweets, defending this crap. This crap is indefensible. This is some of the most heinous things that we have ever seen, and it should not be defended ever.
Absolutely. Look, you don't want to go down in history as a pedo protector. And so what you're seeing these right-wing influencers do with their platform, I mean, they're just exposing themselves. I mentioned that whole white binder crew, right? What I mean by that is there was a crew that had visited the White House early on in this latest Trump regime, where they held up the white binders that said like the Epstein Files, and they were all touting, hey, look, we got the Epstein, but we know the truth. And the cover-up, again, the cover-up in this instance is not worse than the crime. The crime is the most heinous thing in the world. But what we're seeing with the cover-up right now, pedo protectors left and right, and the ones who constantly defend this stuff, defend how the Trump regime is releasing the files, defend Donald Trump tooth and nail. It's just weird. It's just weird, like flat out. It's just a bizarre thing to do. And you talk about being the main character, Brett. Donald Trump is literally the main character of the Epstein Files, to your point. I mean, his name comes up more times in the Epstein Files than Harry Potter was mentioned in the entire Potter series. What else do you need to know about that? It's truly despicable. And why I've seen some of these, maybe non-MAGA right-wing, bros come around to the quote unquote, Midas position, which is really just the truth, the true position, is what we're looking for here. Is that people like to box us in right here at this network. Oh, look at the MeidasTouch network. Oh, those lefty libs, or however they want to like frame us in their minds. At the root of it, every single day, Every single thing that we've ever done was just to find the truth, to actually care about what is going on in this country and to continue to report on that day in and day out. And so I'm hopeful that more people do not want to be defined forever as pedo protectors and want to uncover the truth. And we'll have them along for this ride because it's too damn important. It is too damn important, Ben.
Well, you ask, what else would you want to know? What else is in the 98% of documents that have not been released? I knew there was a lot missing just based on my civil litigation background in complex civil cases, where if you go back in episodes, I would tell you what it was like, me as an associate and a former partner at law firms, as a former litigator. I would look through terabytes and terabytes of documents, and I would be responsible for going through 10, 20 million documents. And I was always saying, there's no way that the Epstein documents are this small. That just doesn't make any sense. And then one of the things that I knew was missing is like, where's all the financial records? And I'm talking about the dailies, the weeklies, the monthlies, the annual accounts. Because what I would do as a young associate and as a partner too, is I would go through, line by line transactions, and I would try to flag if there were suspicious transactions. And when I was practicing, I didn't have access to all this AI software like Claude and OpenAI and all this stuff that's out there, where you can go through a lot of these financials pretty quickly. But you would flag, wait a minute, $9,999 transaction. That seems suspicious, right? That was one of the ways that Eliot Spitzer, the former governor of New York, was flagged when he was caught engaging in with the prostitute in New York, was that the transactions were trying to avoid the limits of $10,000. So you would see these withdrawals that were suspicious, and then that raised other red flags. So one of the things that we would see if we had the bank accounts is, imagine what we've been able to kind of crowdsource already with all this data. Imagine if we had access to bank records and we could see who was paying who. We could see financial transactions. What were their payments going to and from Mar-a-Lago? I mean, things like that should be accessible. And just transactions in general through the global network. There was billions of dollars exchanging hands through this child sex trafficking ring. Where are all those? Where are the FBI witness reports? Where are the interviews? Where are all these things? There's still so much that's missing. And here's how it was being reported. And of course, it's a UK paper that's reporting it, where they talked about how there was, likely only 2% of the documents that have been released so far. A new investigation examining emails sent between federal investigators and prosecutors are raising fresh doubts over the Department of Justice's claim that it has released the full cache of Epstein files, suggesting that the material made public thus far is just 2% of the data gathered by federal agents. UK-based broadcaster Channel 4 News reported that internal emails seen by its journalists show federal investigators expected to process between 20 and 40 terabytes of data seized from Epstein's properties, including his Florida mansion, New York townhouse, and private island. The broadcaster added that the emails between investigators discussed the data totaling up to 50 terabytes from the earliest stages in June 2020. It's a lot of terabytes. I mean, that's, again, hundreds of millions of documents, and we've only seen 3 million. And we've known that what they're withholding is the most devastating. But what about all this other stuff, too, that we now are learning about as well, where there could be 100 million documents being withheld? And as I've said, one of the grounds that they're using to withhold a lot of these other documents is they're claiming what's called a legal privilege, which is usually ruled on by a judge whether you can assert a legal privilege or not. Deliberative process privilege, attorney-client privilege, executive privilege. Just think about it this way. Trump is adjudicating his own privilege claims for withholding records. Think about it. So you think they're going to turn over? Put it this way. What they turned over thus far is likely what they consider to be the most tame, the least incriminating stuff. They're holding back on privilege grounds all the internal memos and emails and lots of the witness interviews and a ton of other stuff, which is far worse. Just think about that. I mean, as we go to our first break, but no one was buying their fake list. People are livid. People are pissed. And it's not only that Trump has lost the culture, which we saw when you have like Obama getting standing ovations. Trump has lost most of his base, and as Brett, as you said, the floor that people thought for Trump was at that like 30% range. And now that floor may be in the 20% range as he continues to just, it's not just the Epstein cover up. I mean, on President's Day, this is so perfectly symbolic of everything. I mean, posting that everybody's doing great, right? I mean, how tone deaf can you be? Happy President's Day. Prices and inflation are way down. The stock market, your 401ks are way up. Our military strong and powerful. Law enforcement is great. The border's secure. Murders, year 1900 and crime at record lows. And our country is bigger and stronger and better than ever before. Work hard. Enjoy your day. DJT, from the man who covers up child sex trafficking rings and builds himself golden ballrooms and golden arches and takes money from the Saudis and the Emiratis and the Qataris to his personal businesses. So then he gives our classified information to them while he talks about fake $12 trillion deals with Russia, while our allies are all turning away from us. And so we get back, I want to talk more about what we saw over the weekend with former President Obama, Clinton, Newsom, the Munich Security Conference, what we saw there, and much more. But I want to take our first quick break of the show. As Jordy said, look how close we are to 6 million subscribers. We're about to hit 6 million. Help us get there this week. You may think you're subscribed, but you may not actually be subscribed. Double check. Help us hit 6 million. We're so grateful if you would do that. We will be right back after our first quick break of the show.
My cat hears the news with me every morning, and honestly, she handles it way better than I do. Probably because she starts her day with Smalls. This podcast is sponsored by Smalls. Is the news making you want to cuddle up with your cat? Smalls fresh cat food is protein-packed recipes made with preservative-free, 100% human-grade ingredients you'd find in your fridge. And it's delivered right to your door. That's why Cats.com named Smalls their best overall cat food. For a limited time, get 60% off your first order plus free shipping when you head to smalls.com/Meidas. Starting with Smalls is easy. Just share info about your cat's diet, health, and food preferences. Then Smalls puts together a personalized meal plan for your cat. No more picking between random brands at the store. Smalls has the right food to satisfy any cat's cravings. Last time I fed my cat Smalls, she loved it. Legitimately, we did a taste test, put 2 food bowls side by side, and she immediately went to Smalls. My cat actually follows me around every morning until I give her Smalls. Still not a believer in Smalls? Forbes ranked Smalls the best overall cat food, while BuzzFeed said my cats went completely ballistic for this stuff. Smalls is possibly my favorite sponsor ever because my cat's breath is so much better and her fur is so much softer ever since I switched to Smalls. This year's winter coat has been so soft and healthy. After switching to Smalls, 88% of cat owners reported overall health improvements. That's a big deal. And the team at Smalls is so confident that your cat will love their product that you can try it risk-free. That means they will refund you if your cat won't eat their food. So stop guessing which meals will upset their stomach. For a limited time, because you are a MeidasTouch Podcast listener, get 60% off your first order plus free shipping when you head to smalls.com/Meidas. One last time, that's 60% off your first order plus free shipping when you head to smalls.com/Meidas. A well-built wardrobe is about pieces that work together and hold up over time. That's what Quince does best. Premium materials, thoughtful design, and everyday staples that feel easy to wear and easy to rely on even as the weather shifts. Quince has the everyday essentials that I love with quality that lasts. Organic cotton sweaters, polos for every occasion, lighter jackets that keep you warm in the changing seasons. The list goes on and on. Quince works directly with top factories and cuts out the middlemen, so you're not paying for the brand markup, just quality clothing. Everything is built to hold up to daily wear and still look good season after season. Plus, they only partner with factories that meet rigorous standards for craftsmanship and ethical production. That wool coat that I picked up is holding up way better than the other coats that I've bought in the past that cost way more. This looks good and keeps me warm, and it didn't break the bank. Refresh your wardrobe with Quince. Go to quince.com/Meidas for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/Meidas. Free shipping and 365-day returns. quince.com/Meidas. Let's go. Shout out to our sponsors. Links in description of both the YouTube and the audio. Use the links, use the codes. If there's that exit survey, let them know we sent you. Benji, where to next, big bro?
You have the video of the standing ovation that former President Obama got at the NBA All-Star game over the weekend. Just show like 10 seconds from it if we've got it, Brett. You know, after Donald Trump posted images of former President Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama with their faces on apes, and then Donald Trump was asked if he was sorry for doing so, and he said no. It sent a very powerful message about election fraud. That's what our demented person in the Oval Office who's covering up for child sex trafficking had to say. Former President Obama was asked about that by our friend Brian Tyler Cohen. And now more than ever, it's so important also for independent news to stick together and uplift each other. So shout out to the great interview that Brian Tyler Cohen did of former President Obama. But again, you saw someone in Obama here in this interview with dignity and class. Someone who's quite literally the exact opposite of Donald Trump. And so here is what former President Obama said in response to when he was asked about Trump's racist posts and Trump's behavior. Let's play it.
First of all, I think it's important to recognize that the majority of the American people find this behavior deeply troubling. It is true that it gets attention. It's true that it's a distraction. But, as I'm traveling around the country, as you're traveling around the country, you meet people. They still believe in decency, courtesy, kindness. And there's this sort of clown show that's happening in social media and on television. And what is true is that there doesn't seem to be any shame about this among people who used to feel like you had to have some sort of decorum and a sense of propriety and respect for the office, right? So that's been lost. But the reason I point out that I don't think the majority of the American people approve of this is because ultimately the answer is going to come from the American people. And we just saw this in Minnesota, in Minneapolis.
Just take a look at the post, too, from former First Lady Michelle Obama. My favorite teammates on and off the court. It's her with her family. You have former President Barack Obama on Valentine's Day posting, celebrated Valentine's Day with my forever dance partner. Love you, Michelle. Again, this is that's who we are as Americans.
I find there's such like a lightness when former President Obama is out there and speaking to the public and, is doing the rounds. Like, you're like, oh yeah, that's what normal is like. That's what like an actual good human being is like. And I've always just found this, I think it was maybe one of the first senses I've got that we were living in a completely different world from other people, and that other people are just in a completely bizarro mindset about things, when they would be like, oh, Barack Obama, the most divisive president ever. I'm like, in what world are you what are you even saying? And if you try to drill down on like the MAGA people who say this while they defend Donald Trump, they never have a good answer. They'll always, and they'll usually end up with like, oh, what he said about Trayvon Martin. It's like, what did he say about Trayvon Martin? That was bad. You're upset that he identified with somebody who was killed. Like I can't even fathom these people's brains. And I think it was the first time I'm like, oh, a lot of the brains in this country are just completely broken out there. But it's great to see former President Obama back there, and kudos to our friend Brian Tyler Cohen for getting that interview and knocking it out of the park.
Heck yeah. And look, it's going to be one of the things that like America at large is just going to have to grapple with as we go forward here. It's like, okay, look, you have folks like Obama, humility, dignity, just someone who, when you actually hear and see speak, and just leadership, the first word that comes to my mind. And then you have someone like Donald Trump, who you just kind of scratch your heads. Is like, how did he get there? You know? And so as we go forward here as a society, I think it's going to be crucial that we just sort of like take a step back. You know, I think the Midas Mighty already know this, but us as a country, take a step back and just see who we want to fill that position, the highest position in government, one of the most prestigious positions in government in the world. And seeing what it's become right now is just such a shame. And so it's been cool to see other leaders kind of stand up and start to show what that humility and dignity looks like again.
Look, there's a close connection, though, here with what we're seeing in the Epstein files, because there's an answer to your question, Jordy. How did we get here with Trump? And it's not a chicken or the egg, you know, the Epstein class or Trump or the Epstein class, right? I mean, it's pretty clear that Trump is a vessel of the Epstein class. And one of the reasons that Trump didn't want these documents coming out, among many others, is that he's a prop, a disgusting, demented prop. But he is a proxy for the Epstein class internationally. Epstein was a middleman. You know how they would always like the deep state, the this or the that. Epstein was a middleman and talking about so much destruction that was going on behind the scenes, deep state style, while you had former President Obama representing the ideals and values that defined America and alliances that defined liberal democracies post-World War II. You had that normalcy, but underneath the surface, as we look at what these emails are showing, these Epstein emails, is that you had this group of oligarchs, of Epstein class individuals who were doing these things to cause massive disruption, and in the panic and the frenzy that would ensue with things like Brexit, annexation of Crimea, Trump's election, all of these things are connected. They feast and they steal and they take and they sex traffic and they hoard the money and they go crazy. And then crypto develops around this time period where all these insiders were also in on the value, and and you have Epstein talking about pitching crypto and all these things to Putin. So it's actually behind the scenes. The Epstein class are also creating things like QAnon, which is actually the type of stuff that they were involved in doing to sow the discord internationally. And Trump was their vessel in the US. Orban's their vessel in Hungary, right? Javier Milei is their vessel in Argentina. Le Pen is their vessel in France. Nigel Farage is their vessel in the UK in the Reform Party. Pierre Poilievre is their vessel in Canada, who was Maple MAGA and was expected to win before Canada saw exactly what was going down in the US after the Trump election and reversed course. They had Timu Trump in Australia, from their Liberal Party, which is actually their Conservative Party. They make it confusing for us over there, who was expected to win and then actually lost his own riding as well. You have this all across the world, and we have to understand that that's what's actually, it's a naive view for us to view Trump as purely a symptom of domestic politics. That's a big mistake. And the Epstein files demonstrates what was really taking place behind the scenes.
And I would add on to that too. I would say the one area where I disagree with what former President Obama was saying in that interview with Brian is that, yes, there are things that get attention when Donald Trump posts things like those horrific racist images about him, or when he posts like videos of him dropping feces on Americans or whatever. But to me, it's actually all a part of the same thread that you're talking about right now. And it's also just getting people to accept this sort of behavior and accept really any behavior. If you could get people to defend the indefensible when it comes to these silly posts, then you could start to get people to defend all these things that you're speaking about, uplifting autocrats across the world, right? You start tearing down that wall of people's kind of, where people would normally have shame. And all of a sudden you get people like Marco Rubio going to Viktor Orban and going, we're going to support you no matter what. We got your back. We're going to make sure you have all the resources you need, Viktor Orban. This was a guy who a few years ago, Marco Rubio, was very anti-Viktor Orban and actually spoke out against Trump in regards to Viktor Orban, said that he was anti-democracy, said that he posed a threat to the region. But now you have Marco Rubio, a guy who goes in and he's just all about Viktor Orban now. And to me, all these pieces are connected. It goes back to that Voltaire quote that I've said on this show before, which is, those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. And I think that applies here to Donald Trump's ridiculous post. They're kind of more than meets the eye there, right? They are like a test. In a way, they are like a humiliation ritual for his own supporters. You're not going to follow this. Oh no, you're going to follow this. You're going to support this. You're actually going to say good things about this. And then you're going to say good things about when I try to take over Greenland. You're going to support that as well. And it just escalates and snowballs and snowballs.
And it's also, Brett, to that end, look, it's a $1 trillion operation right now that's just melting the minds of Americans at large. It's melting the world's minds, but just sticking here in America, it's really scary when you think about the algorithms and the social media platforms and who controls those algorithms and platforms. It's one of the fights that we, the collective us, are all actively fighting now and will continue to fight. I think it will be a defining moment in this country's history. And it will be interesting. Interesting is not really the right word. It will be dire to see ultimately how this fight against the algorithms unfolds over the next 10, 15, and 25 years specifically here. Because there's some scary stuff, man. You get a whole entire class of MAGA folk out there believing in QAnon like we saw back in 2020 and sort of how that came to be. And it's defined our politics now for quite some time. And it's hard to get people out of the algorithms once they're so deeply embedded. I mean, it's beamed into your phone. It's beamed right into your eyes. There's no taking any breaks from it. And seeing who controls those algorithms on a day in and day out basis, it should terrify everybody.
Here's the thing, right? Every conspiracy has a kernel in truth. The thing about QAnon is that it was real. It was just the Epstein class that was doing it. Yep. And they were projecting it on their enemies, like the pizza stuff. They were the ones doing it. Like the playbook is in the Epstein Files of what they were doing to cover up their own sex trafficking, which was their currency also for world domination and world destruction. And I'm not saying that in a conspiratorial way. I mean, there were all the messages basically saying, hey, Putin's about to go after Crimea, massive opportunities there for us to make money. And hey, they were meticulously, how do we take down Pope Francis? How do we hoist up Jair Bolsonaro? These were the leaders of countries, kings, queens, presidents, heads of state, national security, all speaking with Epstein. And he was helping coordinate this in the emails. You could actually see it. And just to show you, even right now, though, the question is, there are lots of Jeffrey Epsteins among us right now. Just think about that. Right now, there are people like that who are doing that job, right? Like when a cartel leader gets killed, a new person fills the role, right? Like El Chapo gets removed, and they got El Mancho and this guy and that guy, right? There are other people who are doing that role right now who are being covered for by the fact that Trump's gutted his DOJ. We don't have law enforcement. We have Tulsi Gabbard is the director of national intelligence. So this network right now, as we speak, is stronger than ever because all these people are being connected like it's going on right now. And that's part of what Rubio's trip is when he's in Hungary right now after being in Munich. First, he was in Munich for the Munich conference. Now he's in Hungary and he's there telling Orban, I got your back. But I want people to know it's also more than just Orban's back. It's part of this Epstein class world order that's taking place. I know I sound like world order. That's what's actually happening. There's no other way to look at it, but that's truthfully what is.
I mean, they're basically even saying it out loud, right? It's a new world order. These are all the things that all these MAGA people warned about. Right? This is what they said. They were like, oh, there's going to be these leaders at the World Economic Forum. They want a new world order. That's exactly what they decided that they were going to do the second they took power.
And I'll show you the receipts here. First, Rubio in Hungary. Let's play that clip first.
It is the kind of thing that I think, for example, I can say to you with confidence that President Trump is deeply committed to your success, because your success is our success. Because this relationship we have here in Central Europe through you is so essential and vital for our national interests in the years to come.
Just think about if he was saying that to Canada, that would make sense. If he was saying that, he's saying that to Orban, who's trying to undermine the European Union, who's a Putin bootlicker, Brett.
I just want to show you this also. So I dug up this letter from Rubio in 2019, and surprise, surprise, it says very different attitude towards Orban and Hungary in this 2019 letter that Marco Rubio wrote as a senator to Donald Trump. I'll just read you the beginning of it. Dear Mr. President, this is to Trump. We are writing in advance of your scheduled meeting with Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban to express concern about Hungary's downward democratic trajectory and the implications for U.S. interests in Central Europe. We urge you to raise these issues in your meeting with the Prime Minister. In recent years, democracy in Hungary has significantly eroded, and then it goes on and on and on about Hungary's steady corrosion of freedom, the rule of law, quality of governance, and it continues. But it just shows you, and this is part of what I was saying before, how these people are now all in. Right? People who were even against Trump on these things. Not 2019 wasn't that long ago. Now they completely flip their positions because Trump has conditioned them to completely put aside any sort of shame and just to be complete and total lackeys to this autocratic movement, not just in the United States, but across the entire world.
Here's Rubio at the Munich conference talking about how naive it was to view that the old world order could exist and that there could be multilateralism. The U.S. was the leader, you freaking moron, of that. That's what made the U.S. the most powerful nation in the world. But go on, Rubio. Here's what Rubio said.
But the euphoria of this triumph led us to a dangerous delusion that we had entered, quote, the end of history, that every nation would now be a liberal democracy, that the ties formed by trade and by commerce alone would now replace nationhood, that the rules-based global order, an overused term, would now replace the national interest, and that we would now live in a world without borders where everyone became a citizen of the world. This was a foolish idea that ignored both human nature and it ignored the lessons of over 5,000 years of recorded human history.
The lessons of 5,000 years of recorded human history is what almost brought the world to total annihilation in World War II, you freaking idiot, with nuclear weapons and mutually assured destruction. So yes, indeed, we did try to build structures to avoid that, because you go back 5,000 years where it was often the law of the strong and you had authoritarians killing people, massacring people. We wanted to try to aspire aspirationally for something better, yes, with rules, with a rules-based order, so we could try to figure out and have predictability and not be in a perpetual state of war, you freaking idiot. And now with the Trump regime and this Orwellian war is peace, peace is war, ignorance is strength, here you are again, now creating more nuclear arms races. You've now weakened the United States irreparably, as we saw what went down in that Munich conference. And you've hoisted up people like Vladimir Putin, whose entire nation has a $2 trillion GDP, which is nowhere near even like Canada. You know, it's like the same GDP as Italy, you know, and you've hoisted this guy up and you said, okay, the new structures are the world is governed by these powers and inevitably just going to war with each other, and the United States being subservient to Putin. It's the most ridiculous thing imaginable. So anyway, but you hear how they're talking about things. And again, don't divorce that from the Epstein stuff. It's all related, because embedded in the Epstein stuff was the exact vision you heard from Rubio just there, which was not Rubio's vision in 2019. Rubio is giving you Epstein talking points right there. That's Epstein class talking points 101 when you read the files. That's what that is right there. We're going to take our last quick break of the show. When we come back, though, I want to show you what else went down at that Munich conference. I want to show you what real leadership looks like. Jon Ossoff giving an incredible speech as well. Newsom giving an incredible speech in Munich. Talk more about that. A reminder, look how close we are to 6 million subscribers, everybody. We're almost there. Let's get to 6 million subscribers. this week. Can we hit it this week? Let's do our best. Hit subscribe. Let's try to get there. Oh, one of the things you could do during when the show's over, you can do it now quickly. Send this YouTube to 5 people you know or 7 people you know and tell them to subscribe if they're not already subscribed. That's one of the ways you can help this show a lot. Just text, email, group, start a group chat. You can call it the Meidas Mighty group chat and say, hey, everybody, you subscribe. They're trying to get to 6 million. And watch the episode today. They cover stuff like corporate news and cable news doesn't cover. So watch it. And it's all based on receipts and facts and evidence. And they talk about data. That's what we do. All right, let's take our last quick break of the show. We'll be right back after our last quick break.
Our next partner is for the person who always says, don't get me anything. This podcast is sponsored by Bookbyanyone.com. Bookbyanyone.com lets you create a fully personalized generated book where your friend, partner, or family member is the main character in a wild sci-fi, fantasy, thriller story, or even a nonfiction book about themselves. This is not a novelty pamphlet. It's a professionally printed hardcover book with over 200 pages of completely original content. I recently bought a book from Book by Anyone for my wife and my son, and they absolutely loved it. My book is titled The Basketball Hoax, and it's about a podcast host, Jordy Mycelis, discovering his dog Mello's hidden basketball talents. It's a stitch, and I've had so much fun reading this with my wife and son, and they love it too. So how do you make a book from Book by Anyone? It's simple and fun. You head to bookbyanyone.com, answer a few questions about the person, pick a book idea and cover, and bookbyanyone.com does the rest. It literally takes 2 minutes, and you have a professionally printed book on your choice of paperback or hardcover. I'm a fan of Book by Anyone because it really is the perfect gift for those folks who just always say, yeah, I don't know what I want. This is perfect for them. Plus, Book by Anyone has printed over 450,000 books, so you can trust that they make a quality product. And shipping is always free, so you can get the best book at the best price. For a gift that's truly unforgettable, head to bookbyanyone.com, order your book today, and enjoy free shipping at bookbyanyone.com. One last time, that's bookbyanyone.com.
DeleteMe makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everyone vulnerable. That matters because most of us have no idea just how much of our personal information is floating around on data broker websites. DeleteMe does all the hard work of wiping you and your family's personal information from those sites, and they don't just do it once. DeleteMe is always working for you, constantly monitoring and removing the personal information you don't want on the internet. They even send you regular personalized privacy reports showing what info they found, where they found it, and what they removed. As someone with an active online presence, privacy is very important to me. When your name, address, phone number, or even family details are out there, it can open the door to harassment, identity theft, or worse. If you haven't experienced that for yourself, you almost certainly know someone who has. DeleteMe can help you take back control. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for DeleteMe. Now at a special discount for our listeners. Get 20% off your DeleteMe plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/Meidas and use promo code Meidas at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/Meidas and enter code Meidas at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/Meidas, code Meidas, MEIDAS.
This episode is brought to you by IQ Bar, our exclusive snack, hydration, and coffee sponsor. IQ Bar protein bars, IQ Mix hydration mixes, and IQ Joe mushroom coffees are the delicious low-sugar brain and body fuel you need to win your day. The new year means a clean slate. Time to transform frustration into fuel. Empower your day with IQ Bar. The Ultimate Sampler Pack is a great way to try all IQ Bar products and flavors. You get 9 IQ Bars, 8 IQ Mix Sticks, and 4 IQ Joe Sticks. All IQ Bar products are clean label certified and entirely free from gluten, dairy, soy, GMOs, and artificial ingredients. All IQ Bar products are packed with clean, delicious ingredients that keep you physically and mentally fit, like magnesium, lion's mane, and more. Start carrying IQ Bar's plant protein bars in your bag. They're the smarter snack choice with plenty of plant protein, tons of fiber, and no added sugar. Committed to working out this year? Great. Make sure to rehydrate after your workout with IQ Mix, a zero sugar drink mix that hydrates with electrolytes, improves mood, and boosts clarity. The new year gives us all a chance to reset. Maximize your brain and body's potential with IQ bars, protein bars, hydration mixes, and mushroom coffees. Their ultimate sampler pack includes all three. I always make a New Year's resolution, but never stick to it. This year will be different because I'll have the help of IQ Bar. Whether it's starting my morning with IQ Joe, grabbing an IQ Bar or IQ Mix to refuel or rehydrate after a hard workout. And right now, IQ Bar is offering our special podcast listeners 20% off all IQ Bar products, including the Ultimate Sampler Pack plus free shipping. To get your 20% off, text TRUTH to 64,000. Text TRUTH to 64,000. That's TRUTH to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details. Let's go. Shout out to our sponsors. Links in the description, both the YouTube and the audio. If there's an exit survey, let them know we sent you. Sorry, I was getting caught up in the way I was saying truth in that last ad read. I thought it was pretty pronounced, but I think folks get the point. Side note, Ben, real quick, audio listeners, please, we are so close, like 150 reviews away from hitting the 50,000 review mark. So wherever you get your audio podcast of the MeidasTouch Podcast, if you are still listening, please, it takes 5 seconds. Leave a 5-star review. Leave a comment. Say hi.
Not to mention, everyone who watches on YouTube should also be an audio listener. So go there, add the show.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Good point. Benji, where to next?
I was with the family at Disneyland this week, and I ran into so many Mighty out there. So I told everybody I'd give them a shout out. So shout out to all the people in Disneyland. It was great.
Nice.
Great seeing y'all. And for everybody who's wondering why I have this cut on my nose, I had put away the Christmas tree. I'd put away the Christmas tree in
Lots
the
of
garage.
comments about the nose.
In the garage, lots of comments about the nose. I put it in the garage, and then I tried to put it up myself today in the attic. Because mom's going to visit, and then I cut myself while I was doing it. So that's
wait, you're putting the Christmas tree away right now?
Yeah. No, it was already in the garage, but I wanted to move it from the garage all the way up to
I was gonna like Christmas tree putting away shame you
live.
No.
February 16th,
it's already been away, and it's in the corner of the garage, but I want to create room in the garage, so I moved it to the attic, and then
got it.
So you got in a fight with the Christmas tree, and it seems like the Christmas tree won.
Exactly. All right, let's talk about Jon Ossoff running a pitch perfect campaign for that Senate seat in Georgia. He's up for re-election. Really, every aspect of this race has just screamed presidential. I mean, they're going to give me right, and he's running for re-election of the Senate, so it's hard to think forward, to 2028 versus other people who we think of that, and also, that's a seat that I think needs to be kept Democratic. And he's one of the only people who could probably keep that seat. And he's been such a good senator there. But when I watched his speech today on President's Day, also talk about how these MAGAs debase themselves into levels of humiliation. And then they're basically captured in the cult once they do that. Brett, it was exactly what you were talking about before. When a Rubio, is broken to say the election was stolen, you can't then basically be like, I was wrong, right? Like when you've lied and you've debased yourself, you've already put yourself in such an area of debasement that like you can't escape the cult. You've trapped yourself. And this is who you are. It defines you. But again, just watch this speech. I was thinking to myself, man, this guy looks like the president of the United States. Here, play this clip.
First, I will affirm what you can all clearly see. You can see it, right? Our nation is afflicted and in crisis. Americans losing insurance in the middle of chemo, hospitals closing down services to fund tax cuts for the very wealthiest people, masked federal agents profiling, brutalizing, and killing American citizens. And maybe amidst all the cruelty and the chaos, you start to feel a little doubt, and you start to wonder whether our republic can survive it. A government transformed into a tool of one man's vengeance and enrichment. A spiritually broken president who digs the moral pit deeper and deeper. But Pastor, Proverbs says, whoever digs a pit Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. And Scripture is full of kings brought low by their own arrogance. Ahab surrounded himself with 400 yes men, false prophets paid to affirm the king's delusions. And those delusions led him to his defeat. And among today's false prophets are the election deniers, who indulge this president's obsession with overturning the 2020 election. Now, hear me when I say this. They tell a lie so absurd and therefore so debasing to tell that the act of telling it proves the teller's total and humiliating submission.
Powerful words right there. Now let me show you another likely presidential candidate, Governor Newsom in Munich. Let's play this clip of Newsom.
Temporary. It's temporary. MAGA will not survive past Donald Trump. He's a cult of personality. I said invasive species. Some of you may not know what the hell I'm talking about. But he took over this Republican Party. You made the point. That old Republican Party, some of them are here. I mean, none of us recognize them. They don't recognize themselves. They don't recognize themselves. I mean, Rubio doesn't recognize himself. He was one of the most effective critics of Donald Trump in the United States of America. Yeah. He should rewatch his old videos. He was right. Lindsey Graham was right. This is temporary.
Then you have Hillary Clinton at the Munich conference. Of course, she ran against Donald Trump in 2016. And here's a clip where she talks about, how Trump has betrayed the West. It's a betrayal of human values. And at this conference, they put some right-wing guy on there who, I'll show you in a moment, because I think it connects. I think it connects to what I was saying. It's the Kevin Schroff clip, Brett, the Kevin Schroff clip of Hillary Clinton spanks obnoxious far-right troll at international conference and calls up Trump's betrayal of values. If we've got that clip that we can call.
Let me pull it.
All right, you pull it up in a little bit. In the meantime, I'm going to show us what some of the other people were saying at this conference. Let's talk about what Kallas, who's the foreign policy chief. She used to be the prime minister of Estonia. And she's like the number 2 right now in the European Union. And she was giving some standing up to the Trump regime. And she said, we don't need to be lectured by the United States right now. Coming from a country that is number 2, us, we don't need to hear criticism regarding press freedom from you. Let's play that clip.
Coming from a country that is number 2 in the press freedom index, hearing criticism regarding press freedom coming from a country that is 58 on this list, it's interesting.
What about Greenland's Prime Minister, Jens Frederik Nielsen? Here's what Greenland's Prime Minister had to say. I think we got that clip. And if not, let's play the clip of Denmark.
Talking about defense. How likely is it that you're going to have to defend Greenland?
So nice to be on stage with you.
Thank you.
And nice to be with my allies and my friends and my partners. Well, let me put it this way. I mean, if one NATO country attacks another NATO country, then NATO ends.
It's game over.
Then it's game over. So I hope I answer your question by that.
Yeah, and that's what we were seeing throughout the conference as well. I think we have the other clip, though, of Hillary Clinton talking about the Epstein Files. Here, let's play this clip.
I heard 3 in particular. To the last question, it's horrifying, and we're hoping that there will be continued release every day that passes. that doesn't mean, as our news commentators say every day in the United States, that because someone's name is there, they committed a crime. But I think there's a lot of very troubling and really horrific information coming out. Today, it came out that Steve Bannon was trying to get Jeffrey Epstein to help him overthrow Pope Francis. I guess that was part of the civilizational true conservatism. So it is something that needs to be totally transparent. I've called for many years for everything to be put out there so people can not only see what is in them, but also, if appropriate, hold people accountable. We'll see what happens.
So that's what was going on in Munich. The other clip was the Prime Minister of Denmark, not the Prime Minister of Greenland, but we also have the Prime Minister of Greenland speaking as well. But Brett and Jordy, just wanted to reflect on what was going down there in Munich as you saw world leaders step up, as you saw Newsom, again, kind of continuing this role as the kind of shadow president. What do you make of it all?
Well, I think you're seeing more and more now, and we saw this in Davos a few weeks back, that world leaders aren't, I don't think they ever bought what Trump was selling here. I'm just speaking about leaders in the actual, the free world, the democratic world, but they weren't quite sure how to deal with Donald Trump for a long time. And a lot of them were placating him and just kind of letting him do what he wants. But I think now you're seeing a difference. You're seeing them not only stand up to Trump, but in so many of these situations, openly mock Trump and laugh at Trump and his entire ideology. And I think that is kind of a powerful statement that we're now seeing on the global stage. And I think in this vacuum of leadership, with the United States not having a leader of the free world anymore, it is giving an opportunity for other people to go there and just to use their voices and to define what American values actually are. And I think that's what we saw Governor Newsom do over there. We saw AOC in Munich speaking. I think it gave her an opportunity to do that. And I think we're starting to see now, with Jon Ossoff and others, kind of a new crop of leaders emerge of folks who actually want to defend liberal democracy, small L liberal democracy around the world, and are actually putting forth what actual values of freedom and liberty mean.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what I was alluding to earlier when I was talking about, leaders are starting to sort of make themselves known if they hadn't already. And that's in their humility and their dignity and really just the maturation of who should actually be in that position ultimately, the president of the United States. When you hear AOC, when you hear Ossoff, when you hear Newsom, when you hear someone that is willing to just present themselves like these things need to be presented. I know that might sound simple, but at a time when you see a total madman, Donald Trump, rage posting and just truly, making the office of the president of the United States so lowly regarded by the way he acts on a day-to-day basis. You need adults in the room. And so I myself am sort of just looking around personally. I'm going to be like, who are those adults? Who are those folks that are going to step up and actually try and regain some sort of prestige around an office that needs it so desperately, Ben?
Here is the clip, we were able to pull it up, of former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. I want to show her clip, and then if we're able to pull it, I want to show this far right-wing minister of Czechoslovakia who's out there using the playbook that I talked about before of kind of division and dividing. So watch, because this is the battle that's taking place at a macro level. Okay, here's what Hillary Clinton said. Let's play it.
He has betrayed the West. He's betrayed human values. He's betrayed the NATO Charter, the Atlantic Charter, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. A lot of what has been done before to try to make sense of how difficult it is to restrain people who want unaccountable power. And none of us in this room, including all of us on this panel, would choose to live under a regime that was so unaccountable that it could act with impunity the way that Putin does, except that's who Trump is modeling himself after.
Well, first, I think you really don't like him.
That is absolutely true. But I really, not only do I not like him, I don't like him because of what he's doing to the United States and the world. And I think you should take a hard look at it if you think that there is something good that will come out of it.
What I think...
Well, let's listen to what the debate is here, because this is the macro issue that we need to be focused on, right? The Epstein class division playbook. What do you think he's going to talk about? The two genders and woke, right? And what she's talking about is actually your freedoms and your liberty and your ability to exist in peace. This is what's taking place at a macro level. Watch the far right-wing deputy prime minister Petro Makinika of Czech, what he said here. Play this clip.
We saw the cancel culture. We saw the woke revolution. I don't agree with the gender revolution, the climate alarmism.
Which gender? Women having their rights?
No, let Peter go on.
I think there are two genders. So, but some of us think that there is more than one, or more than two gender. I think.
Okay, but did you see what the moderator did there, which I thought is deeply problematic? Let Peter speak. Let him speak. He's spewing nonsense, though, right? I mean, so they're given her views, and then he's just spewing and the way he did it too was like the greatest hits of MAGA right-wing division, which is a broader right-wing authoritarian sweep to divide people. I believe there are two genders, and I believe woke and cancel culture and all of these. Cancel culture? You want to know what cancel culture is? Vladimir Putin killing his political enemies. That's cancel culture. Or how that manifests in the United States, Donald Trump going after universities, creating a list which says if you're in the military, this was just past week, we won't fund you if you go to these types of schools. And it's like MIT, and it's like all the top schools. If you want to talk about cancel culture, it's Donald Trump using the government to go after and attack senators and Congress members who give restatements of the law and attacking his political enemies. So it's all nonsense, but it's the same playbook that we see in right-wing regimes across the country. And what you saw on stage there was that one point I'll make, then I'm going to throw it over to you, Brett, before I have to go. But then I want to throw it over to you, which is Canada has been in the center, though, of brokering what is a stable world order in contrast to this. And literally Canada's position kind of in the middle of the Trans-Pacific Partnership and the Transatlantic Partnership. It's like a bridge. Do you remember as a kid, I play it with my little daughter, connect the dots, right? The dots are being connected with the U.S. being isolated, and Canada serving as a bridge between a Trans-Pacific Partnership of Asian countries and the European Union. That's what's taking place right now. So with that said, let me toss it over to you, Brett and Jordy.
Yeah, and I also want to talk about this idea of what that guy was saying there, where he talks about cancel culture, this, and using all these terms. Once again, going back to the strategies of this Epstein class, they are always trying to use the arguments that are actually things that they are doing. So Ben gave some examples before, but there are even some more in-your-face examples that we've learned about within the last 24 hours or so. One of these is that the Department of Homeland Security issued these administrative warrants about ICE, and they issued them to all these big tech social media companies. So Google, Meta, Reddit, Discord, and they said, what we want you to do is let us know anybody on your platforms if they are speaking badly about ICE, if they're criticizing ICE, if they're tracking ICE's movements. We want to know exactly who those people are. We want to know their phone numbers. We want to know their addresses, their IP logs. Give us all of their data. And we're learning that these organizations, some of them complied to at least a certain extent, Reddit, Google, Meta, Discord, giving this information over. And these weren't even legitimate warrants. These weren't warrants signed off by an actual judge. These are internal administrative warrants, which are signed off by the Department of Homeland Security. So they give themselves whatever authority, whatever the hell authority they want. And I think back now, remember the Twitter files, Jordy? Remember, when these kind of right-wing journalists, and Barry Weiss was a big part of it, they were like, we're going to expose how Twitter was working with the Biden administration to suppress right-wing voices. And it was all bullshit. Remember all that Zuckerberg kind of world tour where he went on Rogan and he was all broed out out, and he was talking about the need, we need masculinity at the office. That's what we need, right? We need masculinity. And he was like, my biggest regret was, when the Biden administration would ask us, if there was disinformation about COVID, and I would tell them yes. And I wish we never actually told them that there was disinformation on our platforms and that people could say whatever they want. Like, they didn't even take any real actions there. But that was the biggest scandal of the right? That was the biggest thing. And that's why Zuckerberg did that whole apology tour. And all these people now are freaking silent. And Zuckerberg, meanwhile, is now a guy at Meta who is giving over this actually intrusive information to the Trump regime so that the Trump regime can track people. I'm not sure if you guys also saw this story about Anthropic, which is one of these big AI companies. Anthropic basically said, we don't want our artificial intelligence to be used to spy on the American people. That was their request. We don't want it to be used. So what is the Pentagon doing and the Trump regime doing? They are threatening Anthropic, and they are now they're threatening to designate the AI company as a supply chain risk, which would mean anyone who wants to do business with the U.S. military has to cut ties with Anthropic. They can't be working with Anthropic because they're saying they're a threat because they won't let their technology be used to spy on the American people. So once again, this is all the stuff that they accused the other side of, but then they're engaging in it in such a brazen, illegal, horrific way that truly intrudes on the rights of the American people. And all those people who pretended that these were their issues that they cared about and are just silent now. And not only silent, but they're active participants in doing the thing that they previously said, I shouldn't have done that, or whatever it is. It's screw you. This is happening in plain sight.
Exactly. And it goes back to the point that I was making earlier here too, is with all these social media platforms, just look at the bros, so silly. Look at the, but look at them. Look who controls these platforms. I mean, it will be a defining moment in this country's history as far as how we as a country deal with this. Are we going to let further and further generations fall, privy and susceptible to just a misinformation, nonstop, just beamed into people's eyes? Or is there going to be some sort of antidote to that? Are people going to push back and sort of demand accountability? It's truly petrifying. I think back to when Zuckerberg was at that lunch with Trump, and he was just shaking sitting next to him after he gave some sort of answer, and then he looked at Trump and he tried to whisper under his breath, "Did I say the right number for you, sir? Was that what you wanted me to say?" And that to me just tells it all. That's the entire game right there. Is are we going to be a country that's defined by the Zuckerbergs of this world who are just petrified of the Donald Trumps or whatnot, and lead us down a country and a pathway and a future here where true information, unvarnished truth, isn't getting to the American people because of how these billionaires like to control the algorithms. It's scary on so many levels of not just our generation, Brett, or the folks older than us, but our younger generations, our children should I don't know necessarily the solve, and I hate that I could say that here as an answer, but I do know this. It starts with each and every one of us here in this community continuing to demand the truth and demand accountability. And so I just, wanted to use these last bits of the podcast here to say thank you. Thank you to the viewers and listeners of this show who are constantly demanding information, demanding receipts, and demanding that the truth gets out there, using whatever platforms you have, using your families to have those conversations in your circles wherever you are. It truly means the world, because it feels like we are up against the biggest disinformation algorithm that this country's ever faced.
And Jordy, to your point, and then think about the people that I just mentioned before that were active participants and complicit in turning over this information of American citizens to the United States government. And now I want to bring it full circle now to what we were speaking about with this Epstein class and the way that Epstein acted as an intermediary between all of these dark forces and the billionaires and those trying to kind of overthrow governments and all these pieces. I want to remind everybody of this image that Jeffrey Epstein apparently took. This is in his inbox, and this is an image of Jeffrey Epstein with a lot of these tech moguls officials. This is from August 2015, a dinner. And you could see in this photo, in the back there is Elon Musk. To the left is Zuckerberg and his wife. In the very back there is also the head of Google. So you see right now all of these people sitting in this dark room. I mean, this picture, Jordy, couldn't look any more ominous, right? Like it looks like, and you know, probably speaking about how they're going to kind of carve up the world and how they're going to use their platforms to manipulate people. Like you got to assume that they're speaking about high level things like that in this room. And Epstein was a key coordinator and a key part of all of this with all of these folks. So you wonder, you know, these people, you know, are like, what's going on here? I think you look at that photo and you're like, oh, I kind of see, you know, what's happening. There's one more thing before we go. I do want to just show Volodymyr Zelenskyy, president of Ukraine. Zelenskyy, at Munich, he was speaking about the fact that Russia keeps making all these demands of concessions of Ukraine to end the invasion. And the United States keeps going along with whatever the hell Russia says. You know, Ukraine needs to give away land. Ukraine needs to hold elections, the middle of this invasion, yada, yada, yada. So Zelensky's like, Europe isn't even at the table. Like you're not even letting, you're just taking Russia's side and you're not even letting Europe be involved in European issues. Watch what Zelenskyy had to say.
The Americans often return to the topic of concessions. And too often those concessions are discussed in the context only of Ukraine, not Russia. Europe is practically not present at the table. It's a big mistake to my mind. And it is, I think we Ukrainians who are trying to bring Europe fully into the process so that Europe's interests and voice are taken into account.
And then I want to show you what Zelenskyy had to say about this idea that they should have elections. It's a big Russian talking point that Ukraine should drop everything right now and have elections because they want to try to oust Zelenskyy. Here's what Zelenskyy had to say.
Secretary General,
But we can also give ceasefire for Russians if they will do elections in Russia.
We'll give you a ceasefire, Putin, if you do elections in your own country too. You know, I think that really sums up, you know, the duality of the world right now and a lot of the things that Ben was saying, that there is this path forward of liberal democracy and the free world and that kind of world order that, you know, while imperfect was they were responsible for a great deal of peace in the world and the strength of human rights and democratic values. And then we have on the other side this bizarre, weird, deranged, and dangerous authoritarian strain led by people like Trump and Viktor Orban and all of these other folks. And so I think that, you know, you see both sides of it right here. We're going to continue to call this out. And I think it's important always that we speak about this, not just in a kind of United States centric fashion, but show you how this is a worldwide phenomenon and how all of these people are intertwined. And the Epstein story is actually a way to kind of bind it all together and tell this story because he was such a middleman between all of these dark forces. That's it for today's show. I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to thank everybody for listening anywhere you get audio podcasts. And if you're watching live right now and do not subscribe to the audio podcast, it's completely free. Just go in your Apple Podcasts app, on Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you listen to all this stuff. Go add the MeidasTouch Podcast. If you have a second, leave a 5-star review. Also free, takes 2 seconds. You can leave some nice comments. We always like reading those, and we share them with each other, and we really appreciate it. Remember to subscribe. We are on the way and very close to 6 million subscribers here on the MeidasTouch YouTube channel, so make sure you subscribe. Also free, and check us out on Substack, MeidasPlus.com. We got new articles every day. Ron Filipkowski, our editor-in-chief, does the best daily political news bulletins you will ever read, catching you up on everything you need to know every day. On that note, thank you so much for watching, and I'll let Jordy take it away.
Shout out to the Meidas Mighty!
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.